Welcome to the Manhood Podcast. I'm your host, Bob Mann. We're here to talk about fatherhood, provider, protector, procreator, promise keeper. I have another special guest here today. Happens to be my favorite brother. I had my favorite sister on. This is my favorite brother.
Your only brother.
You don't have to tell everything, okay? And we're here. I'm going to get a double whammy out of him. We're going to talk a little bit about my dad. We're going to talk about his journey as a father. He is one of the few people that I've talked to who was intentional about having a child. And I'll let him tell that part of the story. This is my brother. Love him dearly. His name is Mann. He's got two boys. I'll have him talk more about his boys. But first, let's start talking about our dad and what he did that was so great as a father.
Well, as a father, he was consistent. Mm-hmm. He was always around, consistent in his words. So if he told you to do something, he expected it done. Mm-hmm. He just didn't know nonsense, the way he still is today. His consistency and always being there for us.
Yeah. Okay. And we were talking a little bit beforehand in our pre-production, and you talked about a special moment that you had.
One of my most cherished parts of my scrapbook from my baseball playing days. Mm-hmm. My senior year in high school, I was selected to be a Daily News All-Star, and we got to play in Yankee Stadium, and it was probably like early June. Game in the middle of the afternoon, and coming from our family, June is peak air conditioning season. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine took a picture of mom and dad sitting in the bleachers, not in the bleachers, sitting right behind the dugout, the Yankee dugout where I was sitting, the day I got to play in Yankee Stadium, which is rare for my dad to take a day off in the middle of June to go watch a baseball game. Even if one of his sons was playing.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, where was I? I was probably working while y'all was goofing off at Yankee Stadium.
Probably. Or actually, no, because you probably had just graduated college, right? I think you graduated college the same year I graduated high school.
86.
All right, that was 85. So
I was probably...
You were working.
Yeah, I was working while they were at the game, but it's not about me, okay?
That was a long time
ago. It was a long time ago. And we talked about some of the characteristics that you have now that you learned from Dad.
And a lot of the characteristics are, I see it a lot. Not only in my family that I have now, but also in the work, because I'm working the business that him and my mom started. And we have a lot of customers that now they'll tell me customers have been there for 25, 30, 35 years.
45, 50 years.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They'll call up and they're like, Vinny? I was like, yeah. They're like, you sound more and more like your dad every day. I was like, yeah, I know. I've been getting that a lot lately. And I could just tell in the rapport that I have with the customers is similar to what he had. Yeah. He always treated our customers like they were an extension of his family. Yeah. He never talked down to anybody. And that's how the business has grown consistently.
Yeah. Dad always amazed me at how he did sales. He'd walk into the house, he'd sit at the kitchen table and just lay out for the people what they wanted, and they trusted him. I don't know if you know this story, but there was one time I went to a house, gave them an estimate, right? And I guess the paperwork got messed up at the office. They didn't realize that I had already been there. So Dad came there, I think the next day, gave them a quote for the exact same equipment that I had quoted them for $1 more. They bought it from Dad.
I believe it.
But he has an unbelievable closing rate. Most salespeople, if their closing rate gets 25 to 30%, that's awesome. That's terrific. Yep. his closing rate was probably closer to 80, 75, 80% of the calls that he went on, he would close on. And from what I understand, your closing rate ain't too bad either.
It's not in the 70% range, but I'm trying to get there.
but trying to get there. So that's something else that you picked up from him. I think we all picked up that entrepreneurial spirit, hardworking spirit, workaholics.
And it's really interesting that now when I talk to Dad, I'll tell him, this customer said hello.
Yeah.
And he won't remember the customer's name,
Right.
but if I describe the customer's house to him,
Yes.
he will like, oh yeah, the air conditioner's on the left side of the house and it's like 2 feet away from the chimney.
Mm-hmm.
And now I see it happening to me. Like I'll be in the office and a customer will call and I'll be, oh yeah, it's 22 Harris Avenue in Rahway.
Yeah.
And they're like, how do you know the customer's address? I just gave you the name. I'm like, I don't know. It's just a gift.
Yeah, it's a gift and a curse.
Yes.
It is a gift.
I have trouble remembering picking up groceries on the way home, but I'll know a customer's address.
Remember some random person's address based upon their name. Okay. I'm sure Michelle is real happy about that.
Of course.
So, so let's talk about a negative. You and I both said that Dad was not affectionate growing up. Go ahead and talk a little bit about that.
Well, if you were looking to come home and get a hug and tell you everything was okay, you were in the wrong household.
Yeah.
He was there. He was, if you needed something, if you needed to talk to him about something, he was there, but emotionally, there was a void that was there. Yeah. And, I try to make up for that in the family that I have now. I hug and kiss my boys every day. One's in college now. When I see him, I hug him, I kiss him, and he may not like it, but too bad.
Yeah, but that's important. And I mean, so that generation, men didn't necessarily hug and kiss their children, but our father had a different set of circumstances, and we talked about that.
Yeah, I remember as an adult, I'd asked him. I don't remember him ever saying that he loved me, and for a long time it bothered me.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I finally asked him, like, how come you never said you loved me or never hugged me? And he told me point blank, he didn't know how to be a father. His father died at a very young age. He was trying to survive, having 15 siblings.
Yeah.
Life wasn't easy growing up in rural North Carolina. No. And he never had that nurturing growing up. So as an adult, he didn't know how to offer it to any of us.
Yeah, our grandfather, our dad's father, was a very mean man. Okay, he would just as soon smack you as to say hi to you. All right, just he had a short temper. It may have been a sign of the times, him trying to provide for this large family, a black man in the South in the 1950s and 60s. I believe he died when Dad was 13.
Yeah.
And Dad was the second oldest boy in the family. So the older children all had to go out and work to help take care of the younger children. And they all sent money home. Many of them left home at a young age, 16, 17 years old, moved from North Carolina to Philadelphia to New Jersey so that they could work, and they would take and send their monies home. And even my grandmother was not very affectionate. She wasn't a hugger and a kisser. And I know, some of the conversations she's had with some of my uncles and aunts and stuff like that they've shared with me, she was not the warm and fuzzy type of person. And, you look at your dad and you're like, well, why didn't you hug me? Why didn't you tell me you love me? He never got that. So he didn't know to do that. That wasn't part of his nature. It wasn't what he witnessed, what was modeled before him, and they were able to do that. I think it's great that you've taken that and intentionally done that with your boys.
Yeah. And I'm glad that I asked Dad why he never hugged me.
Yeah.
Instead of just walking around mad at him for never showing me any affection.
Yeah.
He'll praise me for making a sheet metal transition.
Yeah.
But emotionally, there was nothing else there.
Yeah.
And I felt a big relief just hearing his answer. And I guess as maybe you're a teenager, you're not able to think of a question like that to ask him. And I didn't ask him that till I was probably 30 years old.
Yeah.
And it was probably my wife that urged me to ask him why.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know if I ever would have.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's us learning that. And I think I shared earlier, I don't remember him hugging me, affectionately. I think when I graduated college, I was 22 years old at the time, and that one time I do remember distinctly that he did. Now, I know I always felt loved by him, but he just never said it, and so that was the only thing that was missing, the actual physical expression of it, and him saying it. That was missing. And like you said, it was good that you asked. And a lot of people are in that same boat, wondering why my father never did. For those who had their fathers there,
right?
That's huge. Let's say that up front here, our father was always there.
Yeah.
There was never. I don't remember him being away from home. He didn't travel for work or anything. He was home every night. He may not have got home until after we went to sleep sometime, but every morning you saw him, and sometimes he's waking you up in the morning because you didn't do the chores that you were supposed to do the night before when you went to bed.
Or it was time to go to work.
Oh, God. Yeah. We won't even go into that time to go to work thing, okay? I started going out with him to work when I was 12. And he said I didn't have to go every day. But when I woke up and I said, I want to stay home today, he was like, well, come to work anyway.
Right. He probably said, if you want to come home, I'll drop you off later, which never happened.
Never happened. Thank God for Mom. She would come get us. If we had a game or something, she would come get us and take us to our game. All right. So now you are one of probably a dozen people that I've interviewed who can actually say you planned your first child. Talk to us about that.
Yes. My wife and I, we've been married for 12 or 13 years. And at first, I wanted to have a kid right away. She didn't want to. Then she wanted to have a kid, and I didn't want to. So 12 years later, we said, well, we're not getting any younger. I think she was probably 31.
Okay.
31, 32 when our first son was born.
Okay.
So we
and how old were you?
I was 35.
35. Okay. All right. Your nephew might be following your footsteps. But anyway.
Yeah, I was 34
when
my first son was born.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And soon as he was born, you those paternal instincts kicked right in?
They were right there as soon as he was born. Yeah. I changed that first messy diaper. They tell you when you're in the hospital, do a lot of skin-to-skin contact. So I was in the hospital room with no shirt on, just holding him on my shoulder and my neck, and holding him, talking to him.
Awesome.
Right away.
Yeah.
No hesitation whatsoever.
Okay. All right. Now, there were some special circumstances with your first. Tell us about that.
My first child was diagnosed being on the autism spectrum right around probably, we didn't get a diagnosis till he was probably about 2. But my wife knew something was up right away within the first 2-3 months.
Okay.
She knew something was not right. He wasn't developing properly. Call it a mother's intuition, father's ignorance, because I had no idea and kept telling her, it'll be fine. Don't worry. Boys are just delayed. They don't develop as fast as girls do. It's nothing to worry about. So I could have saved myself, my marriage, a lot of stress if I would have been on board a lot sooner.
Okay. All right. So it caused a lot of conflict there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about the therapy that he went to that led him into his chosen career path. Now that he's in college, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Kids on the autism spectrum, it's a broad spectrum. There's kids that are nonverbal, and there's kids that can graduate college when they're 14, 15 years old. And there's a lot of space in between there. And my son is in between there. And we've tried, thanks to my wife and all the research she's done, tons of different types of therapy, finding something that he can connect to.
Yeah.
Some kids connect to sports, some kids connect to drawing, all kinds of activities, but we couldn't find anything that held his attention or that he would pay attention to. But one of the groups that my wife found was a animation class for probably, I want to say he was about 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
He made his first animation video. It was Mr. Red's Explosion, which I still have on my phone to this day. And now he's in college, pursuing a degree in theater design and technology. So he's come a long way from hardly having any words till he was almost 4 o'clock, and my wife teaching him sign language just so he could communicate a little bit, tell us if he was hungry,
Right.
if he wanted milk or cookies or a banana. All these signs that my wife actually would stay up till 3, 4, 5 in the morning doing research, trying to figure out how to communicate with a child that's nonverbal.
I want to commend you and Michelle for doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
I'm sure it's very stressful, very strenuous. With a child that has something that you're not familiar with, that you don't know, that you now have to learn about, then trying to communicate with him. I'm sure there's a lot of frustration in there, a lot of failure in there, but you stuck through it. I am extremely proud of my nephew. Okay, love him like I love cooked food. I always tease him, about having a girlfriend. You don't want me to talk about that. About having a girlfriend. It's a handsome young man, just unbelievably handsome young man.
He's coming out of his shell now. So.
Oh, shucks, look out. Ladies, look out. You're going to have my nephew out there, and y'all in trouble. But extremely proud of him and the progress that he's made, and what you all have done to get him to that place. And he's off at college on his own. Something that I don't know about you, but I was always concerned about him being able to be on his own.
I mean, I guess a lot of families think about their children going to college when they're, 8th, 9th grade. 8th, 9th grade, we didn't know if he could survive through high school. He was still getting pulled out of the general ed class to resource classes, smaller classrooms with extra teachers. But to his credit, he's worked his tail off and done more than we expected. So it's truly a blessing and a surprise where he is right now.
Okay. And so you let him use the autism as an excuse, right, for not doing well?
No. He tried that once. We told him, we had to explain to him that he has autism, because as kids get older, they realize that they're different than a lot of their classmates. And he came home, had a bad test on a grade, and he tried to say it was because he was autistic. And That doesn't fly in my house. So we called the teacher the next day,
Yeah.
and he had to retake that test because
Okay. All right.
autism's not an excuse.
Yeah.
It is a diagnosis,
Yeah.
but we don't put any limits on him.
Right. Right. Good. I mean, listen. I mean, Dad always said to us, if you're gonna do it the best you can, or don't do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've tried to tell him, well, I'm not gonna do it at all. And he said, "You'll do it anyway, and do it the best that you can."
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure you've passed that on.
It's the same way.
To your kids.
Yeah.
Now, you got two sons. The second one you plan too, right?
No, he was total surprise. We didn't think my wife could have any more children, and
Okay.
boom, there we go.
Here we go. And that was how many years later?
6 years apart.
6 years apart.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And
So we had sold all the strollers, all the baby stuff, all that stuff
well,
was sold.
yeah, you can't hand it down after 6 years. I think 3 years is the limit on
No,
that
I
kind
can
of stuff. Because the car seats and everything else change.
As long as there's no recall on it, it's still good.
You are your mother's child, that's for sure. We're not talking about mom. Right? We're gonna
That's
leave,
a different
we're
conversation.
gonna leave her alone. And we talked a little bit about your youngest son. All right, he's just like your wife, huh?
No, he's like me. He's going to be a challenge. I see a lot of me in him, all the mischievous stuff I used to do, and
Yes.
I have to be careful what I tell him. He told me just last week. He's like, "Dad, I know how to sneak in the house. I know which steps to miss on the way up so you can't hear me." So,
Wait, my brother used to jump out the bedroom window onto the garage roof and then jump out onto the
all
ground.
right, I did it twice.
You have a reputation, okay? And then leave the back door open so that he could get back in, okay? I never thought of doing nothing like that, okay? And I say to him that everything he did, every mischievous, tricky, sneaky thing he ever did, he is getting back in his youngest child.
Yeah.
I talk about being a procreator, reproducing yourself and your children. Oh, he getting it back, and I'm laughing and enjoying every minute of it.
It's coming back tenfold. I got a feeling. I got a feeling.
Yeah. So we talked a little, the good, the bad with Dad. The things you did with your oldest, excellent. Anything with your youngest that you could say you did good or wish you could change or did bad?
With my kids, I'm always pushing them to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
And I love sports, and I tried to get VJ wanted nothing to do with sports.
Mm-hmm.
But my second child, I tried every sport with him.
Yeah.
When he was playing baseball, this is how tricky he is. He was playing baseball, and I had him batting right-handed.
Uh-huh.
And then in the middle of a game, he took 2 at-bats right-handed. I look, and he's batting left-handed.
Uh-huh.
Had never swung left-handed before. And I called timeout. I said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm going to get a hit." I was like, "All right, knock yourself out."
Yeah.
And sure enough, he got a hit left-handed, first time ever swinging a bat. But then COVID came along, and he decided he didn't want to play baseball anymore.
Okay.
And he
Broke your heart, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
He apologized to me.
Yeah.
He said, "Dad, I know you have more fun coaching,
Yeah.
but you have more fun coaching than I do playing."
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I was like, "You noticed that, huh?"
We share the same heartbreak. We both played baseball all through high school and everything. Love, 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 love baseball. None of our kids played baseball. Okay. Short period of time, maybe. And I coached mine too. And then they stopped. They started playing soccer, basketball. I was like, oh, not baseball. Why not baseball?
Yep.
So we share that same heartbreak, with them as far as the. I'm going to wrap it up with this. My oldest nephew, your oldest son, His middle name is Yudha. Yudha. Yuda. Last name Mann.
You the man.
You the man. This guy right here named him that, okay? I tell people my brother is just as crazy as he could be. And I thought maybe that's a nickname or something. I actually saw it on his social security card.
That's
okay.
on the birth certificate. Yep.
Yeah. So yes. And I always said he should have been a baseball player. Have a candy bar named after him. Remember the old Henry candy bar?
Or the Reggie bar. Yeah.
Reggie Bar, you the man, candy bar. Okay, maybe the next generation, we'll get a baseball player, and we can use that with them.
Yeah.
Listen, folks, thank you for listening to the Manhood Podcast. Hopefully, this has helped you as a father. My brother Vinny shared some really good stuff about having a child who is different, and working to study and understand them, and being able to best parent them and support them into being successful in life. I always say this: reach out and talk to somebody who may be have already gone through what you're going through, and get some help. As men, we don't talk enough about these things. Ladies, if you have a man in your life who has fathered your child and you don't understand him, this podcast will help you. And if you have a relationship with your father that you don't understand, and my brother here shared, some really, good information about not understanding why he didn't get a hug and a kiss and an I love you from his own father, even knowing that he loved him, he never got that, and asked the question. And you just need to look a little deeper, and this podcast will help you do that. Watch us on YouTube, Manhood, Mannhood, on YouTube, and on we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcast from. Download the podcast and listen. Vinny, thank you for being here. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.